Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This one I'll be going over all the starts and sits for Week 3, so I'll be going over the first 8 games of Week 3. There will be a part 2 of this video going over the last 8 games of Week 3. I'll go through every single player that I think should and shouldn't be in your fantasy lineups here. I'll try and touch on everybody that I think is fantasy relevant, but if I leave any names out, maybe if I fail to answer any specific start-sit questions you might have, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I love helping you guys get your lineup set and hopefully getting you guys ready to roll and get some wins this week. So, should be a good week of football. We kick things off with maybe not the most exciting week or exciting game of the year in the Jets-Patriots game. Not expecting a ton of points in that one, but it's still football. A couple weeks ago, we'd have been super stoked to see anything happen on Thursdays. So, glad we got football here. This game should be a lot of fun. And of course, yeah, any questions or anything, just let me know in the comments. But yeah, let's get into it. Got a lot of games to talk about here. We'll start things off here with the Patriots at the Jets on Thursday Night Football. Honestly, not a lot to talk about in this one for me. I think that for the Patriots side of the ball, you're obviously starting Ramondre Stevenson. He's been extremely involved. He really does seem to be the centerpiece of this offense, and he's looked good too. So you're putting Ramondre in your lineup. He's like a high-end running back 2 for me. Don't think he's quite like a low-end RB1 for me just yet, but I really like what I've seen out of him for sure. So you definitely started him. Hunter Henry would be the only other guy that I would consider for the Patriots here. He's a low-end option at the tight end position. I get it if you want to chase last week's production. I know a lot of us are hurting out there in the tight end streets, so if you need to go there, Hunter Henry's not the worst option in the world. You could certainly consider him. For the Jets, though, we got Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Those two are obviously in your lineups, and there's really nobody else. I know Braylon Allen had a really great game last week. Not playing him here. He's like basically Tyler Algier at this point. He's a really talented backup, guy that would be awesome if something happened to Breece, but he's not a guy that you want to play any given week here. Garrett Wilson, the only guy really getting enough targets in this offense to really trust. Where obviously we tried, I'm sure some of us tried chasing Allen Lazard last week. That was pretty clearly not going to work out, and obviously it didn't. Mike Williams will get more and more involved over the course of the season, but I'm not going to start him at all until I see that. So it really is nobody else. It's Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson here, and honestly, I would still look to trade Garrett Wilson if you can. I've been pretty out on him historically, but it's just a matter of I don't think he's that dude. He was the wide receiver 32 last year. He's the wide receiver 33 and the wide receiver 32 each of the first 2 games this season. It's just really alarming at this point. We're going to keep making a lot of excuses for Garrett Wilson, say that, okay, he's going to be really good if he just gets some good quarterback play. And it just feels like the days of Terry McLaurin of old or DJ Moore of old where he's just never going to get that quarterback play. So I don't want to play Garrett Wilson very often. You're starting him. He's a wide receiver 2 for me, but you can still get top 10 wide receiver value for Wilson. I would definitely look to move on if you could. Next game here is going to be the Giants at the Browns. For the Giants, Malik Nabers, he's going to be a must-start every single week. We saw him break out last week. He is a superstar. He's going to be awesome all season, and you're definitely starting him. Probably not going to repeat week 2 against what should be a much better defense in Cleveland. Obviously, the Commanders are certainly a defense we can take advantage of, but he's a stud. He had a 64% target share last week. We'll take that. We're definitely playing Malik Nabers every single week. And then Devin Singletary, going to be a solid low-end running back 2 basically every single week here. He's basically dominating touches in this offense. He's effectively a workhorse running back, albeit on one of the worst offenses in the NFL. He will get the goal line work when they get down there. Obviously, we saw that last week. He's going to get targeted a little bit more. They just haven't thrown the ball a lot yet, but he's got enough volume there. He's a volume-dependent RB2 play, and someone that I do think, of all the running backs in this game, would be the one that I'd be looking to start. Nobody else, though, for the Giants. Then moving on to the Browns. Amari Cooper, I think he's got a good game in him this week. I think he's a probably pretty solid wide receiver 3. I made a trade for him. I talked about earlier this week. I just think he's going to be a guy that's going to put up probably a big catch at some point in this game. This Giants defense is not good at all. I think it's definitely one we'll look to target, and I think we'll see Amari Cooper get back on track this week. So I'm perfectly okay starting Amari Cooper. Honestly, I don't know what to do with the rest of the Browns here. Jerome Ford and Deonta Foreman, that's absolutely terrifying. We don't really know what the workload's going to be there. I honestly think that Deonta Foreman probably gets the goal line work. Jerome Ford's maybe more the pass catching back here. It's just not good. I don't want anything to do with any of this backfield. I would really prefer to bench both those guys if I can. And then if you need to stream Deshaun Watson, you can do it. It's a good matchup, obviously, against the Giants. We know Watson offers some rushing ability, so I view Watson as like not a top 12 quarterback, but if you're really down bad at quarterback, you could stream Watson this week if you need to. Next game is going to be a really exciting one here. We've got the Eagles at the Saints here, so this game could certainly be a high-scoring affair. I don't think there's a lot of decisions that you really need to make in this one, though. For the Eagles, you're going to start the usuals. You're starting Hurts, you're starting Saquon, Devonta Smith in your lineup for sure. A.J. Brown sounds like he's probably going to miss this game. Say after last week, he said he expected to miss at least a few games here, so A.J. Brown's not going to be out there. It does make Dallas Goedert a more intriguing option. You don't need to start him, but I would view him as a top 10 tight end here, so Goddard should probably be in lineups, especially with A.J. Brown out. For the Saints, I think you're going to start all of them too. Derek Carr is one of the best streaming options here. This Eagles defense has not looked good so far this season. They weren't good last season. They've got a really young secondary that maybe they'll get better over the course of the season, but I don't buy it right now for the Eagles on defense. They're not a good team. We're definitely going to target them there. And then all the other options here in New Orleans, they've been absolutely clicking. Alvin Kamara is obviously a must start. Rashid Shaheed, he's locked in your lineup just with how many big plays he's connecting on. And then Chris Olave, still the most talented player on this offense. You're starting him. I know it hasn't clicked yet, but I think this could be the breakout game here for Olave. Next up, we've got the Texans at the Vikings. For the Texans, Stroud, Collins, Dell, and Diggs probably going to be in your lineups in this one. The Vikings defense has looked really good so far, so you don't need to force Dell or Diggs in your lineup. I think that Dell is certainly going to bounce back at some point in the season. I'm not worried about him over the course of the entire season here, but the Texans defense is good. This could be a low-scoring game, or like a sneaky low-scoring game here. The Vikings defense has obviously looked great as well. You don't need to force them into your lineups, but they're certainly decent starting options for sure. At the running back position, Joe Mixon, he's probably in your lineup if you start him, or if he starts this game. If he does miss the game, I probably want to sit all the Texan running backs just because we don't really know what the distribution of work's going to be there. We've got Cam Akers and Dameon Pierce. If Dameon Pierce ends up missing this game as well, he missed last week with a hamstring injury, and we knew Cam Akers was going to get all of the work, then I would trust Cam Akers here, but if we don't know exactly what's going to happen there, I would probably just sit Cam Akers, even though you maybe spent a decent amount of fab on him this last week. For the Vikings, Justin Jefferson sounds like he's going to be good to go in this one after dealing with a thigh bruise last week. He's in your lineup for sure. If Aaron Jones misses this game, I think you're going to play Ty Chandler here. I'm just saying that because Aaron Jones was a limited participant in practice today on Wednesday. We'll see what happens there. I think he should play. If he does, Aaron Jones is a low end too, but if he misses, I think Ty Chandler's a solid play. And then Jalen Nailor, a guy you can stream as like a really low end flex play if you need to. I'd prefer not to. Like I said, this Texans defense is I think better than people are giving it credit for. I don't necessarily trust Jalen Nailor to put up a touchdown every single week, so I don't want to do it, but if you need to in a really deep league, you could go there. Next up here, we've got the Broncos at the Bucks. Honestly, for the Broncos, I'm going to sit every single Bronco this week. Javonte being like the low and potential exception here just because of volume, but he has not looked good so far. He's playing up against stacked boxes because nobody trusts Bo Nix and his ability to throw the ball, so you're banking on Javonte either falling in the end zone or catching 5 passes, and I just don't think either one of those things happens here, so I don't want to play Javonte Williams if I can avoid it. For the Bucks, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, they're going to be in your lineups here. Obviously, we are a little concerned that Mike Evans could get shadowed by Patrick Surtain here, so there is the possibility of a bit of a bust here for Evans, but you're still playing Evans. He's too talented. You're going to play him every single week. Rachaad White, a solid running back too. Keep an eye on his injury status. If he does end up missing this game somehow, Bucky Irving would be a really solid play, but I'm starting Rachaad White if he's active. Then I'm probably not looking to stream Baker in this matchup. The Broncos defense is decent. They're not going to score a lot of points. This won't be a game where the Bucks need to pour it on here, and I just don't think Baker's a guy that I want to look to in week 3 here. Next up here, we've got the Packers at the Titans. It'll be interesting to see if Jordan Love suits up in this one. He said that he's at least hoping to play in week 3 here, so that'd be really great, honestly, to see him only miss one game after the injury scare we saw on the second game of the season. I'm not going to play Jordan Love in this one. The Titans are a really good defense. I don't think people are giving them enough credit for that just yet. And then also, his first game back off an injury, it should be a low-scoring game here. I don't really want to play Jordan Love in this matchup. I want to see him come back and play a healthy game before I trust that. And for the same reasons, I don't really want to play any Packer wide receivers. The Titans, with L'Jarius Sneed having an elite lockdown corner, their defense is good. Jaden Reed would be the wide receiver that I would play if I had to play one, just because they'll manufacture touches for him. I'm much more willing to do that if Jordan Love is active here, but just don't really want to look at any of the Packer wide receivers here this week. Outside of those guys, Josh Jacobs, he's a must-start this week and every week going forward. Marshawn Lloyd got placed on IR. Jacobs is going to continue to have near 30 touches every single week. You're playing Josh Jacobs. For the Titans, Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, I think they both need to be in lineups here. The Packers defense does not scare me. Pollard is basically a workhorse in this backfield right now. Calvin Ridley's the clear alpha in this wide receiver room. I'm playing both of them in what should be a plus matchup, but nobody else really interests me. DeAndre Hopkins is still ramping up from that injury he suffered in the offseason. Tajay Spears got banged up last week. Just don't want to go anywhere else here in this offense. It's Pollard, Ridley, and nobody else. Next, we've got the Bears at the Colts. For the Bears, I think DJ Moore is probably the only Bear that I want to play in this one. Keenan Allen was banged up last week. I don't want to play him in his first game coming back off injury. Rome Odunze hasn't looked good. Caleb Williams has obviously not looked good enough to justify starting. The Colts have been absolutely awful in terms of run defense so far. We saw what they allowed Joe Mixon to do in week 1, and then obviously what Josh Jacobs did to them last week. So if you really wanted to, I think this would be a good week to play DeAndre Swift, but he has looked absolutely awful so far this season. I really don't want to do it. I think he could be like this season's Miles Sanders, where he got a bunch of money and just wasn't good this season. I wouldn't be shocked entirely at all if we saw Khalil Herbert get a lot more work over the back half of the year here. So keep an eye on Herbert. I don't think he should be on waivers in most leagues right now. For the Colts, Jonathan Taylor, he's a must start every single week. I don't need to tell you that. Anthony Richardson, a decent starting option here. Not one that I'm super stoked about, just because the Bears do have a pretty good defense. They obviously have shut down some deep opposing quarterbacks so far. Obviously, Will Levis and then C.J. Stroud. Neither one of those guys put up monster fantasy outings in their matchups against the Bears. So it is a bad matchup, but we know what the upside is with Anthony Richardson. You can definitely play him, but I think he's like a low-end QB1 for me this week. And then I don't want to start any Indianapolis wide receivers. Pittman's obviously the guy dominating targets, but they're close to the line of scrimmage. They're not really worth anything. Alec Pierce has sort of had a fluky performance so far to the season. You could maybe flex him if you really needed to, but I don't want to do that. I'm probably just benching every Indy wide receiver this week and just hoping that we see more usage and better performance out of Pittman so that we can trust him going forward. And the last game we will go over today is going to be the Chargers at the Steelers. And talk about old school football here. I don't know exactly what the over-under is, but I think I would recommend taking the under. This is going to be a very low-scoring game unless the defenses create some turnovers. J.K. Dobbins, he's a low-end running back too for me in this one. You're hoping for that big play, and it could happen, but the Steelers' defense is certainly a step up from the defenses he's played so far this season in the Raiders and the Panthers, so I wouldn't necessarily bank on that big play happening this week. Gus Edwards, also a touchdown-dependent, like lower-end RB play. You can play him because he's going to get the volume, but he hasn't looked good. Just has not been involved as a pass catcher. You're banking on a short yardage touchdown for Edwards, so I'd prefer to bench him if I can. I don't want to play any LA pass catchers out. This is a really bad matchup. They're not throwing the ball enough. I just don't want to trust any of that. If you have to play one, I still think it's probably Ladd McConkey, but it could be Quentin Johnston. It could be Joshua Palmer this week. Just too much uncertainty in a bad matchup. I don't really want to go there. So I'd prefer to avoid them, but if you have questions or anything like that, I can try and give you some advice there, but I really would prefer just to bench all those guys if I can. For the Steelers, Pickens is probably the only Steeler that I want to start here. I do think he's got a good matchup here against the Chargers. The Chargers have a good defensive line with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, but I do think they will be able to get exposed a little bit downfield. I think we could see Pickens finally have a good game this week. So I definitely want to start Pickens. Najee Harris would be the only running back for the Steelers that I really want to play or would consider it. You need him to score here. I don't think there's a really great shot of that because, like I said, this should be a really low-scoring game, but Najee will get the short yardage work. I'm okay playing him as a volume play. I prefer him over Gus Edwards and Jaylen Warren in the same game, but I would prefer Dobbins to Najee if that helps. Jaylen Warren not listed here, but I'd look to bench him here. I just don't think they're going to throw the ball enough to really give him that pass-catching upside that he needs to really be a high-end performer. And then he's obviously not going to score a touchdown either unless he rips off a long one, which I don't want to bet on. So it's Pickens, Najee for the Steelers, and then Dobbins and maybe Gus Edwards for the Chargers, and really nobody else in this game. So that'll do it for the first starts to sit video in week 3. Up next, I will go over the remaining 8 games, go over every single other player that I haven't talked about so far, give you guys my general thoughts on who should be and shouldn't be in your starting lineups in week 3. Of course, if you guys do have any specific questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I love helping you guys get your lineup set. Friendly reminder as well, if you do have anybody playing tomorrow night in the Thursday Night Football game, make sure that you do take them out of their flex spot. You want to keep yourself that flexibility going forward into the rest of the week, just because, things pop up. We saw Evan Ingram go down to an injury in pregame warmups, Christian McCaffrey, A.J. Brown, things like that happen. Having that flexibility heading into the weekend is going to be huge. So don't use your flex spot on Thursday if you can avoid it. And then, of course, there's going to continue to be a ton of content going forward. We're going to have the live stream for week 3 at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go over last-minute injury updates, help you guys get your lineup set. So make sure you do join that. There will be that every single week, along with 4 to 5 other videos every single week. So if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do. That way you'll get access to everything. If you made it this far in the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up as well. It just really helps me out and just helps me know that I'm doing a good job and you want more content like this. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you with the next video probably tomorrow. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.